Abusia Micha na Misanso emo akwa bebe channel so hada so aye be media je abusia be se wase ene day di kan wani etwa channel so a need you kwan so abusia be se be subscribe be like na wa bo aso a share dwumadi na ofofro pense na bi atie no anya bi atie na abusia na nsem bia ba betodwa efa eye kan Ofori Atta eye Ghana former eye finance minister under eye Danado Dankwa eye former president Danado Dankwa Akufo Addo abusia no ne administration abusia no honsem ma betodwa etwagu ewo ye social media so enya asem ketwa me pesem kasa ba no pese ko kokoti nsem aba beto abonten a efa eye kan Ofori Atta ho emra sese ha eda so aye be media gh bobodi aso be subscribe e de amai gedas.
Breaking news. Ghana's former finance minister Ken Ofori Atta is currently detained by the US immigration authorities. Ken, who served as finance minister from 2017 to 2025, is currently being detained on matters related to his visa status in the US. I'll break down what all of this means for you on this channel. My name is Tony. I'm a Ghanaian writer who lives in the US. On this channel, I explain issues from an intellectual perspective. And so, if that's something you are into, subscribe to this channel. Now, let's discuss the Ken Ofori Atta situation, starting with a letter that was sent to the public by his lawyer in Ghana. So, in case you don't know, Ken Ofori Atta have two sets of lawyers, right? He has a legal team in the US that are dealing with his extradition matter from the US. We'll talk about that later. And in Ghana, he's being represented by a very famous law firm called Akroma. And Akroma were the ones who put out this public notice. It reads, the United States Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, as of yesterday, detained the former Minister for Finance, Mr. Ken Ofori Atta, regarding the status of his current stay in the United States. His U.S. legal team is in contact with ICE and expects the matter to be resolved expeditiously. They went on to say, Mr. Ken Ofori Atta has a pending petition for adjustment of status which authorizes a person to stay in the U.S. legally past the period of validity of their visa. Under the U.S. law, a change of status is by this method is common. They went on to say that Mr. Ken Ofori Atta is a law-abiding person who is fully cooperating with ICE to have this matter resolved. Now, let me explain the second paragraph of what his lawyers say to you, and then we'll talk about other matters related to this issue. They said, let me quote again, has a pending petition for adjustment of status. Pending petition for adjustment of status means that it is highly likely that Mr. Ken Ofori Atta's visa to the US has expired, but he is still living in the US legally because he has a petition before the US immigration authorities. Let me explain what I mean by this. Using a familiar example, if you come to the US on student visa, let's say your student visa was 4 years and you finish your education in 4 years. After 4 years, your visa will expire, but it doesn't mean that you automatically have to leave the US, because after student visa, you have something called OPT, where you can legally stay in the US for up to a year because you have OPT, optional practical training. So your 4 years may be expired, but you still have a year to stay in the US legally, because, let me explain this to you, visa is for entering the US. Once you are in the US, your visa doesn't matter. It's about whether you are here on a legal status or not. So legal status and visa are related, but they are different. So how does this relate to Ken Ofori Atta? Let's go with the student example again. In that 1 year period, you met a fine girl from Texas, where I stay, and then you guys got married, and then you filed for a green card. Usually, your green card petition, it will take maybe months to sometimes years before your green card would be confirmed or denied. If you file for green card, doesn't mean that you're going to get it. It can be confirmed or denied, right? And so The period between when you filed and when your green card is confirmed or denied, you would have a pending petition. So you'll be in the US on temporary status. So that temporary status, it could be 2 days, it could be 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years, 20 years, is still temporal. Because once they call your case and confirm or denied, your temporary status changes to whether you have a green card or you can leave, or you have to leave the US. You understand that? And I believe that that temporary status is what his lawyers is referring to, because they were careful to choose those type of words. If his visa was legal or was valid, they would have used those words. But they use the word pending petition, which means that he's in the US under temporary status, which I agree with the lawyers that it is a common practice in the US. So yeah, his lawyers are right on that count. You understand that? But here's the thing that a lot of people don't know. Your stay in the US as a foreigner is at the pleasure of the US government. And one thing that the US government is, apart from you not committing a crime that will be an issue for the US government, one thing that the US government pays attention to when it comes to even giving or denying green card is whether or not you be a financial burden to the US. Right? So this is a pro tip for those of you who are in the US on temporary status. If you are pending green card or you are waiting for green card, I would advise not to go for US government what's the name, SNAP, or what's the name, any form of financial aid from the US, except maybe education aid, let's say student aid or something like that. Because the moment you are taking SNAP and things like that from the US, you are a financial burden to the US government. So they can use that as a reason to kick you out. It has nothing to do with the Ofori Atta case. What I think is happening here is this. Ofori Atta's extradition request by Ghana has made him a financial burden to the US government. Let me explain what I mean by that. And again, this is based on my theorification of the theorification, a word, mutualizing with tally. This is my theory of the case. Now, I have done 3 videos on the Ofori Atta status. And in my 3rd video, which I'll put at the end of this video, I explained that extradition is a lengthy process. So the government of Ghana would ask for extradition formally from the US through the US State Department. The US State Department will send the request to the Justice Department, who is like the Attorney General Department of Ghana, right? The Justice Department would go through the case and see whether they have a good case or not, and then they will present it before a judge in the US. And then the judge will ask some questions. Ofori Atta's lawyers would, also make a case before a judge. Because of how legal cases are, this can last for months or even years. So the fact that Ghana have requested for extradition for Ofori Atta doesn't mean that he's going to be sent to Ghana immediately. Now, a judge will have to certify for him to be sent. And that process of getting the judge certifying him is a lengthy process. So in the video I said, I'll put at the end of this video, I said that the earliest we can expect Ofori Atta to be extradited to Ghana should be somewhere in March. Earliest. But with this arrest, it is likely he'll be coming earlier. And back to the financial burden thing. The extradition request Ghana sent, it is the US lawyers who would have to go and argue it before a judge. So the US government, through the State Department, would have to spend money to go before a judge to argue that Ghana wants Ofori Atta extradited. Think about it. So they'll have to spend money to investigate the matter. They have to spend money to write legal briefs. They have to spend money to go to the court and argue before a judge, and it's not automatic that they will win, right? So I believe that this arrest is the US government's way of avoiding having to spend money to work on the extradition of Ken Ofori Atta. That is my theory of the case. That, and actually, with the extradition and the financial burden associated with it, it will make this legal. But even if it wasn't, think about it this way. The US executive, which means the president, the Justice Department, have broad jurisdiction on international law and foreign policy cases. So, remember when Trump sent some people to Ghana on a third-party deportation matter, and the people went to the court in the US to, what was the name? To say that they were illegally deported. The judge in the US said that, well, I do not like how you were deported, but we do not have any say in this matter because this falls under foreign policy. So the only person who can review the president or the executive is the Congress. You understand that? And so if, and a big if, the US deports Ken Ofori Atta on this matter, she's not going to have a recourse because he can't go to courts. You understand that? And so I believe that the Trump administration is taking the easy route on the extradition by having ICE deport him. And yeah, that is my theory on the case, right? And that's about it. So you can be in the US legally. Let me repeat this again because it will apply to other people. You can be in the US legally and still somehow get deported if your stay in the US becomes a problem for the US government. As long as you are not a citizen, yeah, it's a problem. Even if you are a permanent resident, you could be in trouble. So basically that's about it. And so I just wanted to highlight what the situation is so far. It is around, it's almost 7 p.m. in Texas where I stay, which means that it's almost 1 a.m. in Ghana, which means that tomorrow morning you are going to wake up to hear on the radio, TV, and not newspapers, because if you don't know this, I used to work at a newspaper in Ghana. By this time, all the newspapers in Ghana have already been printed, and so you are not going to see it on the front page of the newspapers. You are going to hear it on radio and TV, and I'm pretty sure Graphic and Daily Guide are going to be whoa. We should have waited, but they couldn't have waited because this came out really late in Ghana time. You understand that? Good. And so we'll talk later on this matter. I know that we'll talk later on it because yeah, this is a developing matter. I just wanted to highlight the breaking news aspect of it. So subscribe to my channel if you are waiting for the breaking news aspect of it, development. And also I will put the video